I am so grateful for our friends at Blue Microphones. Not only have they completely changed what our show sounds like, they've given me headphones so I can monitor things better. This is the mic for millions of creative people, and now I know why. I'm so grateful for them completely changing the quality of our audio. You'll find Blue mics like Yeti and the Mouse, which we're using here, both in pro studios and home studios, literally all over the world. Their popular Yeti caster is a Blue Yeti microphone plus a boom arm system that's behind many of your favorite podcasts. I run into them all the time, and now I know why. If you've ever thought about creating your own podcast or YouTube channel, Blue can make you sound and look great. Just visit bluemic.com and click Get Started, and you can start telling your story. Anyone who's watched me over the years knows that I'm obsessed with Hydrolyte. In my opinion, the best oral rehydration product on the market. I literally use it every day. My family uses it. When I had COVID, I'm telling you, Hydrolyte contributed to my recovery, kept me hydrated. Now, with things finally reopening back around the country, the potential exposure to the common cold is always around. And like always, Hydrolyte has got your back. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity, my new favorite, starts with their fast-absorbing electrolytes and adds a host of great ingredients. Plus, each single serving easy pour drink mix contains 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, 300 milligrams of elderberry extract. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity comes in convenient, easy to pour sticks that rapidly dissolve in water, make a great tasting drink, has 75% less sugar than your typical sports drink. Uses all natural flavors, gluten-free, dairy-free, caffeine-free, non-GMO, and even vegan. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity is also now available in ready-to-drink bottles at the Walmart next to the pharmacy. Or as always, you can find it by visiting hydrolyte.com/Dr. Drew. Again, that is HYDRALYTE.com/DRDREW. Be sure to use the code Dr. Drew 25 for a special discount.
Everyone, it's a dose of Dr. Drew.
Ooh, it's very terrible echo. Okay. All righty. Thank you, everyone. Wonder if you guys are hearing the echo at the other end as well. Thank you. Clubhouse is joining us today, too. Let me know, you guys, if you're hearing an echo on the stream presently. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you in Clubhouse. We'll get you guys to the microphone in just a second to answer a question. The question I posed to our Clubhouse friends was, is there anything about life in the cities today that we should be looking at? We noticed coming from California to New York City, people seem much more collaboratively engaged in New York City. There's a lot more positivity as compared to California, where we seem to be carrying that state on our back to no avail. There's seriously nothing going on of benefit. So appreciate you guys joining us on the stream as well, and thank you for the note about the echo. I appreciate that. Dad was vaccinated. He's scared to even drive 4 hours in his car to come see you. I am so mortified about the amount of phobias and panic disorders and generalized anxiety disorders and depression we are seeing on the heels of the panic porn that people have been subjected to. You've got to be realistic about this thing. You've got to remember, you're fully vaccinated. The probability of getting an illness is probably under 5% if you've had the mRNA vaccines. And more than that, even if you get a breakthrough infection, there's now evidence that there's no transmission. If you were one of those unlucky 5% that gets COVID, you don't get hospitalized, you don't die, and you don't transmit, which is rather extraordinary. So let me go to the phones here and see if I can get some questions from Clubhouse, but I apologize. I'm having trouble getting the speaker to turn on here. So Ali, can you hear me?
Yes, Doctor. Hello.
There you are.
We talked in the last live stream too.
Oh, where are you? You're in Iran?
Yes, I am in Iran. But is it okay if I talk first, because I feel like you want to talk about the cities?
No, listen, I was very intrigued by your situation, so please go right ahead.
yeah, it hasn't changed much. It's still the same. People are worried about how slow the process of our vaccination is, and yeah, I hear people talk about how there's the lights at the end of the tunnel in the U.S.
Yeah.
This slowly could see it, but I feel like we just got into the tunnel,
Yeah.
and it's kind of people are worried about their parents, how it's going to be. So
Listen, it's completely reasonable to worry about old people, right? I mean, that has always been true. And the mistake I think we made in this country is we didn't emphasize that, as we need to protect the elder population. And younger people, yeah, it'd be nice if they didn't replicate the virus, and it'd be nice if they didn't become contagious. But the fact is that, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble thinking.
Okay, back up the microphone.
Hang on one second. We're having some technical issues here. Give me a second.
I'm having issues. I'm just trying to tell you. You're really loud.
Hmm.
And he's.
Okay. All righty. We can switch the gain.
That's good. I got him.
All right. All right. Sorry, Ali. So the fact that people are very concerned about the elderly population is extremely positive. I mean, that's awesome that they're paying attention to that. The question is, what does the numbers look like? Are you getting accurate numbers about what's going on?
it's going, like, it's rising. It's been on incline for a long time, and it's not decreasing. Doctor, I had a question. I don't know if you've talked about this or not, but there was some controversy about what Joe Rogan said about the virus.
Yeah.
If you like,
Sure.
take care of your immune system, you don't need to.
Here's what he said. Look. So here's my position on this. I think it was perfectly reasonable what he said. Right. The problem is people are extremely nervous about anyone in any way doing anything other than reflecting orthodoxy. So the orthodoxy is get the vaccine. It's the greatest thing in the world. There's nothing wrong with it. Joe just raised the issue, and it's a rational issue. If you're a 20-year-old with no risk from COVID, the COVID itself has zero probability of killing you. It's a vaccine that, we really don't fully know the full risk profile for yet. So you're taking something that there's a little bit of an unknown risk profile against something that we know fully well has zero risk for that individual, or 0.01% risk. And he was reasoning out loud, not recommending, but reasoning out loud. I think if I were a 20-year-old in perfect shape, I might consider not taking the vaccine. That was a reasonable thing to say. Now, having said that, there's another issue that he wasn't taking into account, which is that we all have a collective obligation now to try to reduce the replication of this virus. Let's say a 20-year-old gets the virus, it replicates billions of copies. The 20-year-old is not very much affected by it, but a mutation develops in that particular individual during that particular replication cycle. The E484K binding site, the spike protein binding site, is a region that's highly prone to mutation. And if enough mutations occur, eventually it could get around our immune system, people like me that have had COVID, or get around the vaccine. And that is the risk. So from my perspective, for people to talk rationally about the vaccine, I think this whole idea that if you don't speak, it's almost like a religious orientation. This is science. We are allowed to talk about risk-reward analysis for a given individual. We can talk about it. Now, that's fine to talk about that risk-reward, but I would urge everybody, including the 20-year-old Joe Rogan was talking about, to get the vaccine because we have a collective obligation to reduce the replication of the virus so no mutations occur. That would be my position. But him saying, isn't it interesting to think about a risk reward of a healthy person who has no risk of the virus versus risk reward of taking a vaccine for which the risk profile is not fully established yet. Interesting. That's all he was saying. That's all he was saying. Did you catch that? Yeah.
No, and there was a new episode with Andrew Santino, which I know you guys have a COVID-related history.
We do. We do.
Yeah, he kind of apologized. He said, I didn't consider as you said, the collective.
Oh, good. Well, that's good. But here's the deal. Here's what I really see when I saw that story, which was that social media now launders stories. Just the way money laundering occurs or money disappears and turns into other things, now social media has become a story laundering institution. So Joe analyzes a risk reward analysis out loud, and that becomes Joe Rogan's an anti-vaxxer. That is fake news. That is how fake news is generated on social media. They literally launder the stories till it turns into something else, and then the so-called traditional media reports it as fact. It's incredible. When you see it in real time, it's really something to behold. I can hold this, right? Okay, but I can hold it though. Ali, you still there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was just-
Hey, I'm sorry you guys are suffering. I mean, it's not fair. You know, I the average citizen, you know, in Iran does, or just, it's just painful to hear that you're having to suffer. You know, and as always, it's usually not the citizen's fault; it's the government's fault, right?
Yeah, true, and it's not just coronavirus. Even before this, people were really suffering from economical problems that were caused because of the government's behavior.
Can you get out?
Me personally,
Or your family? I mean, can you get away? Is there?
I need to get a student's visa. So it's been the thing most people do. With you, either need to be a good student or in order to get a visa, and you can't really get your family out of Iran if you get a student's visa, or you have to have a lot of money and go invest it in other countries, and that's not even possible right now because the money in Iran is worthless. Like no matter how much money you make, it's not going to be enough to invest in other countries.
Let me ask you a crazy question. Is there any possibility of the government changing?
I don't. There's an election coming up, so it's people are really people don't really want to participate in it, and there's like. Yeah, there's talk about that, but I don't think it's going to change. It's hopefully it's going to there's going to be some changes within the system right now.
I hope so. I'm sorry you're suffering, Ali, but I appreciate you checking in on us. And you're okay today. Your family good?
Yeah, I have to. I have things to do, so I can't be in quarantine anymore. So I moved to another city, and my parents are still in the quarantine. I don't want to visit them.
No, yeah, protect the old people. Make diligent protection of the old people. And
Yeah,
and should you get this thing, it's nasty, but it's unlikely to harm you. It's just nasty.
And I make every it's not. It hasn't been clear that you really have to take those supplements every day. Take what you need. And like I've been going to every pharmacy place and looking for quercetin.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still say it's good or not, but
well, you don't have to take quercetin. I mean, you can take just 25 or 50 milligrams of zinc.
Yeah,
5,000 of D, 1,000 of C, and it's on the margins. Look, these things are on the margin. These aren't panaceas. They aren't necessarily going to prevent infection. We don't really have the only prophylactic thing that has been documented so far is the polyclonal antibody infusions, which do work, but if you don't have access to the vaccine, you're not going to have access to those monoclonal and polyclonal antibodies. Ali, I appreciate you checking in, my friend. It was good to hear from you. Let's get Chris up here and see what Chris got to say. Hey, Chris, what's going on? Chris, you're on mute. There you go. What's up? Good.
Nice to meet you.
You as well.
I see your mutual friend Paul Webster is down below as well.
Oh, Paul's in here. How about that? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know which Paul
and I
that
worked
was.
Together for Secretary Carson.
Oh, no kidding. Paul, I just did a stream with him last week. We went into a lot of detail about what needs to be done.
I did. I watched you guys, and what you guys did is so fantastic.
Thank you. What's going on? We were to that point. A lot of what's going on in the breakdown of the citizen experience in Los Angeles is seeing people suffering on the street with homelessness. I mean, you just don't have that here. Here, wherever you look, you see people, either New Yorkers engaged in helping, or actually people and government money and private money invested in the city and working. The opposite of Los Angeles, where you can't see anything moving forward, literally nothing. You only see decay.
Yeah, it's frightening. I mean, Paul and I've talked about this extensively. I've worked in my career for the last 30 plus years on mental health. So I've worked with a lot of different folks and populations. And when you spend time in downtown Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and you look at the 60,000 plus people that are unsheltered, and how much, I believe it was over $2 billion or more of being spent on an issue that's not fixed.
Right.
It's actually disgusting. Our people should not be treated this way.
That's exactly right. But what's bizarre, why do you think it's a radioactive move to call it a mental health crisis? Why is that just not axiomatic? Why does that have to be something controversial?
I honestly don't understand that. I mean, to me, it's not controversial. To me, if you have to deal with the issue of having ownership of taking responsibility of teaching people better habits, showing them ways for drug addiction and going to get for co-occurring disorders or treatment, and or we actually treating mental health, which the numbers have spiked across the country in very large numbers.
Yep. Somebody today was
only going to get worse.
Yeah, somebody today was quoting to me the decay in the number of psychiatric beds per citizen. We're off by a factor of 50 or something, and it's really problematic. We need more psychiatrists, and I keep saying we need a continuum of care from inpatient, acute, locked, inpatient, residential, subacute, assisted outpatient treatment, vocational rehab. We need the full continuum. Unfortunately, it goes under a heading of just what do they call it? Wraparound services, which you have no idea what they're talking about when they say that.
Well, I would say that you and other providers who understand what that means in the mental health world, what it means about wraparound or co-occurring disorders, or if you want to use the term continuum of care, it's a very complex system. You're looking at the DSM where you have over 450 diagnoses, and you're looking at what people's personality disorders, how they react to chemical treatments, how they react to medications, how they react to stimulus.
That's right.
I mean, there's a very big difference in what just is simplicity, and this is a bipartisan issue. This is not Democrat or Republican.
This is a human issue, and I don't understand why the so-called activists get to drive people into the grave. I don't understand it in the name of their own. I don't know what they gratify in doing that. I mean, there are 5 people dying every day on the streets of Los Angeles, and there's not one physician on any of the committees determining what resources go to these people. That would literally be the same as if we had a medical floor and it was taken care of by administrators with no doctors. I mean, it would just it'd be astonishing. It would be like ridiculous. And by the way, a medical floor that had 5 people dying every day, you don't think somebody would eventually go, hey, we need to get a doctor in here to figure out what's going on?
Well, and as you know, as a doctor, you take that hypocritical oath and to do no harm and do your best to treat people at their best and worst. And you want to meet people at their worst situations. So I actually think this is it's very cool with you in Clubhouse, and I can see Paul down below. So I think with Clubhouse and the forums that this is going to be able to do, it gets out to a much broader.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. Thanks, Chris. I'm gonna ask Paul maybe to come up and give some comments. There you are. Paul, I'll let you follow on what Chris was saying and maybe a little bit more about what we talked about last week. Paul?
How are you?
Hey, man. So there's your buddy Chris, bringing up these issues you and I went into great detail about last week.
Yeah, I got to tell you that I was on the phone with a psychiatrist who works in the correctional facilities in New York earlier this week, and it was really interesting talking about the contrast between Southern California and New York. One of the interesting features is that New York has a right to shelter.
Yeah.
So because of that right to shelter, you don't see the destitution that you see in Los Angeles. Now, right to shelter isn't necessarily a solution, but it's a nice way to I guess kind of get people out of sight.
And Paul, isn't that what that judge was essentially mandating, Judge Carter?
I don't think he was going that far. I think he was basically pressuring the city and the county to say, hey, what you've been doing has been failing, and we have significant loss of life and destitution on Skid Row. I'm ordering you to spend your money over here,
right,
and to do it by a certain time. So that's very different than, establishing a right to shelter where people who can say, look, I've got nowhere to go and you have to shelter me. It's
Right.
a little bit different.
Right. Do you think we could get a right to shelter law in California?
See, I get a little nervous about that. And it has
They
to
can't
do
hear him now.
with just, the funding and what the funding goes towards. If a right to shelter, like we talked about last week, it doesn't funnel money towards treatment.
Right. Right.
And you have essentially, instead of destitution on the street, you've got real challenges in some of these shelters, including crime and danger to family members, and active addiction going on within these four walls. So it's a complication that needs to be considered. And I'm not saying that it's out of the question. I just think that there's some complexities to it.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
And my big concern is, obviously we not like some people have a place to go, but my fear is, my concern is this continuum of care that no one's talking about, and that is not a simple matter. You need people that have years of experience in managing hospitals and residential facilities. This is not, oh, we just send a social worker in to knock on the door every day. That is categorically inaccurate. Inadequate for these folks need. But the idea is try to get them back, try to bring them back to functioning.
And I think it's a great contrast. I think it's a great contrast to say, hey, public, is drive-by case management, is that effective? Or can we start looking at something more robust, something that has greater accountability, something that actually has clinical outcomes? Whether it's long-term residential treatment and care facilities, whether it's step down, really, you're talking about this continuum of care on the mental illness and the behavioral health side.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that the distinction between the kind of quote-unquote wraparound services that are provided for homelessness and the clinical care and treatment that are part and parcel of residential treatment facilities, they are worlds apart.
Worlds apart, yeah, worlds apart. And that's only recently come into focus for me that people literally don't understand what they're talking about when they say wraparound services. And even just the term wraparound services is something reserved for psychiatric patients. That's who gets wraparound services. But whether or not the level of wraparound service intensity is adequate to the given individual's psychiatric problems, social workers can't determine that. And we've got armies of social work. And by the way, internists can't determine that either. You need psychiatrists to determine that.
Yeah, and you've got a bunch of social workers that are focused on homelessness. Again, let's just introduce this concept of, are we successful in the provision of services, or are we measuring success by outcomes? I can go out and I could reach out and I could say, hey, there's some shelter. Hey, there's some you can get addiction treatment. We will provide quote unquote those services. Maybe you need a ride. We will provide those services. Those things are all process oriented. It's very different to say how many of these people that we outreach to actually completed a drug treatment program, and are increasing their sobriety.
Right.
So, and I think that ties right into what you're talking about quality of life.
Yeah.
Quality of life is not a matter of, I've got all these wonderful things that I can choose, versus my quality of life has specifically improved because I went through a program, I got sober, now I'm in recovery, and I think we need to, we really need to highlight that more so that people understand those distinctions.
I agree. Well, as always, thanks, Paul. Appreciate you being here today to flush out the conversation a little bit. But we did, we just noticed that things are much happier here in New York. It's strangely, I mean, it's like people, rather than the city being, the citizens carrying the city on their back, the city is providing things for the citizens, including the homeless. And it's a lot different, And it could be different in Los Angeles too, but I don't understand. It's so confusing to understand why they won't move it forward. But all right, Paul, thanks.
Hey, thanks, Drew.
And we've talked about it. I mean, we've talked about how difficult it is. On the Restream, let me get to some of your comments here. I hope you guys can still hear me. Crystal had COVID shot. This is a tough question. 3 weeks ago, fever, sore throat, etc. Since either COVID or caught something else. Correct. You should have a COVID test. Canceled the second shot. I was supposed to get it today, but I've had fever in the past 3 days. I think that's probably the better part of Valley. I think that's probably smart. There's not you don't lose much by waiting a few weeks on the second shot. You should get tested for COVID to make sure you don't transmit to anybody else. So again, you're only about 50% covered when you get that first vaccine. So you do want to make sure you're not walking around with COVID out there. I know you guys weren't hearing the call from Clubhouse, so I will try to see if I can get that sound even a little better. Well, somebody said go to the right-hand corner. I don't see that. Yeah, it doesn't really give me those options for. I think we are essentially audio quality. Let's see what that says. How about high quality? What do you think? That may not be high volume though. That may be high quality. May actually turn down the volume.
That was good.
Okay, good. All right. Gina, what's going on there? We're in Clubhouse as well as on the Restreams here. Gina, how are you?
Oh, that's so much better. Don't move it.
Yeah. Mm.
And I listened to this talk, and I know that there's so much to be done and needs to be done. And as a parent of someone, I always feel, even after all these years, that resources for him are limited.
Yep.
The bureaucracy is like the key because of him and all kinds of factors that impact his quality of life.
Yep.
He's been hospitalized, institutionalized, in jail for periods of time, and he could be sober for 3 years and just come out and not taking those meds. He's right back at it.
Right. So imagine a world. First of all, here's an easy fix. How about we just make HIPAA laws for psychiatric care the same as every other organ system? So not all this BS shrouding psychiatric care. And I can't tell you whether I'm taking care of your son or not. We can't tell you whether your son's admitted to this hospital or not. We enlist the help of family in treating the brain diseases just the way we enlist the family when somebody has a cardiac illness. Doesn't that seem like an easy fix right there?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I think that the LPS laws in California really need to be updated.
Oh my God. How about reestablishing something like gravely disabled, something where people can't live safely on their own until they can, and then they're out of that gravely disabled category. What about that?
I have to tell you that one time my son was at a mental health hospital in the Valley. It's a private, small hospital in Panama City. And the social worker who talked to me said he knows the difference between food and feces. Therefore, he's able to make the determination and he doesn't need an LPS conservative.
Okay, so zero in on that again. I want to say it again. She was told, here's the mother of a child with serious brain disease, and the social worker says he can tell the difference between food and feces, therefore he is on his own, essentially. Crazy. Super crazy, right?
And frustrating.
Oh my God, beyond.
There's your HH, which is in a whole other thing, you know?
Yep.
That's a whole bureaucratic tangle.
Yep.
Anyways, I just wanted to share that, and thank you for...
Well, listen, I appreciate it. I really believe that family members of people with serious mental illness and people with serious mental illness who have recovered are going to be the solution. We've tried this. We've tried bringing up family to Sacramento, and they just blow them off. But you need to get everybody. There needs to be an advocacy group of family of loved ones with serious mental illness that is heard. So please, if you can organize in any way, I know it's not your job, and
No, but I always feel feel that that's what my calling is to do, is to like figure that out.
Great.
And will, because I always think, when I think of wraparound approach, I think of a place where my son can live where near me because they need family to recover.
Yep.
But as a renter, you have all kinds of other restrictions with mental health because the landlord doesn't want the adult who's not on the lease to be with you because they might cause problems for your neighbors.
That's exactly right. Listen, we need that continuum of care, so he is around a team of personnel that can help teach him about his symptoms, contain his symptoms, treat the symptoms as they come on. And the longer he stays stable, the longer he'll stay stable.
Yes.
So, but please, if I can help you, let me know, Gina, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Ugh, my goodness, it just makes me so crazy to see people suffering and dying with conditions that are so treatable. It just and people getting in the way of that, who literally don't know what they're talking about. Literally don't know what they're talking about. They have no training in these things. They've never seen the difference between somebody who's so disabled they end up in the streets versus somebody who was in the streets and is fully recovered. Maybe they've had that experience themselves. That is not a training for understanding what is going on in a given individual, a given patient with a brain disease. You don't, just because I had my appendix out doesn't mean I should be doing an appendiceal operation. Oh my goodness. Josh, what's going on? Hey there.
So the question was, basically, you want to know how it's going here. I'm in Boulder, and I feel like everyone's coming back, and it's great. But
Good.
I think that the people that are struggling are the people that were already struggling before the crisis happened.
Mm.
And in those cases, I feel like it's a mental health issue for sure. So the fact that you want to separate out the homelessness being a mental health issue, but then there's also a mental health issue of people who are, just kind of struggling. Maybe they're not homeless yet, but they're not doing well because so much economic damage has occurred.
Yes, well, and isolation and loneliness and substance use is up. But it's not as though the only people with serious mental illness are in the streets. I mean, mental illness, brain disorders are amongst the most common conditions of humanity. And we pretend as though they're rare or they won't happen to me or anything. 50% of Americans have a diagnosable mental health condition. So, of course, things are going to be worse. And of course, when they do something like this to us, like make people, overcome with panic, isolate them, have them, isolated and using substances, of course, it's going to go crazy. It's going to go crazy.
Yeah, and I'm not immune to it. I'm feeling the same sort of just heaviness, because we're not there yet, and
I don't think when we are there, it magically is going to lift the mental health symptomatology, because it's like saying, when somebody is being traumatized, when the traumatic event is over with, hey, it's done, you're over. No, you're not. No, you're not. It continues. It continues, and the body keeps the score, as Dr. Vanderkolk says. The body keeps the score, and so you remember being sick. Well, you don't remember. It's implicitly imprinted on your body and has effect on our physiology. And of course.
Yeah, so in my case, it's just a lack of connection. There's still not enough body to body sit down connection.
You're not alone.
Yeah, I'm craving.
You're not alone, my friend. I think a lot of people are craving it. But I want to tell you, I mean, that's what caught our attention today here in New York. In New York, it feels like it's happening. Don't you say, Susan? Like there's a lot of connectedness here and people are happy and engaged again. But that's very different than what you see on out in California, where people are disconnected for the most part. Now, there's somebody who has a question here about sex addiction. Richard.
So loud.
Yeah, Richard wants to know, why don't we just stop? Because I can't deal with all the technical stuff.
It's not working because you can't hold the phone there and you can't,
Because they can't hear the...
You're leaning into the mic.
All right. Richard was asking, can I talk about sex addiction, please? Needs to be. What is it you need to know about sex addiction, particularly? Is there some particular question you have in mind there? Anthony Brown wants to get into the conversation. Anthony, what's going on, buddy? Whoop, you went away. There you are.
Hey, Dr. Drew.
Hey, man, what's up?
Hey, just am I supposed to talk about sex addiction?
No. Anything you want. I mean, the problem we're having a problem in that if I am close enough to hold the phone close where these people on the stream can hear it, I'm overmodulating. So it's a technical thing that's just getting distracting. I can't concentrate. But go ahead. Let's see if they can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Here's my situation, because I'm an advocate. I'm there for the homeless, the mental ill.
Yeah.
I'm there for the drug addicts.
Well, explain to people, you're a director of a residential treatment center. You're a nursing director. You're a nurse administrator. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a director of nursing, and get all kinds of licenses to support it, whether it's substance abuse,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
And so I'm helping with the mental illness by, helping them get stabilized, give them some tools, they can go back out there into the community. And then on the other side of the coin, I'm working with alcoholics and addicts in the 12-step community and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my thing is, we have to approach this holistically, because it's really hard to do it piecemeal, like one-on-one. We have to try to figure out some sort of system that's going to work.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. And you guys are kind of doing it in Orange County, California. In Los Angeles County, Zippo.
Yeah, and I wanna get up there to try to do some work. I'm trying to get some connections, because I even went and did a little thing for health and human safety thing in YOLO to try to get them to pass a bill that says, hey, you need more structured treatment for people that's really sick instead of putting them in jail,
Right.
teaching them how to be incarcerated.
That's right.
And so systemically, we all have to jump in, but I can see personally how it gets tiring, have to always swim upstream.
Say that again? Yeah, they
So
can't hear you.
It gets tiring always having to swim upstream, because there's so much opposition.
Well, the opposition, it's weird. It's like trying to take care of a patient when somebody runs into the ER with a knife or something and says, stay away from that patient. I mean, somebody who doesn't know anything about medicine or psychiatry. It's very upsetting.
Yeah, and it's sad, because people, not saying everybody, but a lot of people are screaming, help me, help us, help this situation. And we're like, okay, we have the tools, we have the skills, we have the experience. Where do you need the help?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we don't need your help. It's like, well, what? It's baffling.
Yeah, it's baffling. That's exactly right. Well, Anthony, I appreciate the work you do, and I appreciate you making some comments here to support us tonight.
Send over
well, I'm going to got a couple more questions here to go, but let me just say, somebody's asking about if there is such a thing as sex addiction, is there such a thing as love addiction? And Richard, none of it is technically a diagnosis, in the sense that the DSM-5 does not include something called sex addiction or love addiction. But as a construct, people do talk about sex and love addiction. Fundamentally, the sex and love addict is somebody with an intimacy disorder and has difficulty in closeness, where it's either too disconnected or too intense. The love addict often will confuse intensity for love. And so, we always are coaching love addicts to think butterflies, not lightning bolts, when they get involved with somebody. Because if their attachment style is such that they get, overly excited about somebody, you can predict that overexcitement is going to get into a cycle of problematic. There's a love addiction, love avoidance cycle. You go from love addiction to love avoidance, maybe a little sex addiction mixed in there, back to love addiction, then love avoidance. It's not a great cycle to be in, and a lot of people get stuck in it. You could look at Pia Melody's book. I think it's called Facing Love Addiction or Overcoming Love Addiction. Pia Melody writes some very good books on that particular topic. All right, so this is Nesterin. See if I can get Nesterin up here. Doesn't look like she's coming. There you are, Nesterin. Whoops. Hi there. Your mic is on. What's going on? Hello? Nesterin. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Nesterin. Well, that's not going very well. So appreciate you guys hanging in the audience at Clubhouse. A lot of you have been here listening to the conversation. We are going to keep the conversation going over at drdrew.tv. We're doing a few more minutes of streaming, and you can go on to the chat room there. If you want to come up to the microphone now here, you can raise your hand, and I will bring you on up. You can just, it's hard for me to do it if you don't raise your hand. So raise your hand if you want to make any comment. And if nobody raises their hand, a few hands just came up. John has a comment. John, go ahead. Yes. There he is. John, what's going on?
You got me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, so my question, when you talk about love addiction, explain what you mean by that, because to me, love is a decision. It's not a feeling.
If you have a pattern of excessively intense relationships that don't work out, where oftentimes you find yourself either getting overly involved with somebody, or you feel like the over-involvement feels consuming and yucky, read that book by Pia Mellody, where there's a pretty common cycle that people get into. It really depends on whether you've had a certain pattern in your life or not. If you have perfectly satisfying relationships, then we don't need to have this conversation. But if you have repeated relationships where a pattern is developing of excessive intensity and things don't work out, you might want to look at it.
Yeah, but so can you define love for me? Because I don't know, maybe we're talking about two different things.
Again, we're talking about, people spend lots of different, spill a lot of ink trying to explain exactly what it is. It is the attachment, right? Attachment style. There's 4 different attachment styles. It is the feeling of intimacy and closeness that people maintain with another human being. It can include playing with boundaries where people fuse and unfuse. But if that boundary becomes excessively porous, and again, excessively intense, where the intensity becomes problematic, then that is spilling into something other than love and just intensity itself.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking to me. I have great respect for you. I've been watching you for a long time.
All right, man.
I would just add, I think love is a decision to do what's best for someone else without regard for yourself.
Well, but again, what is falling in love then, right? What happens to you when that?
I don't think people fall in love.
Well, maybe
people love each other, and the feeling of love shows up.
That's you. That's your experience. But trust me, a lot of people fall in love and they can't control it, and it can be overly intense.
That's not love.
Well, that's again, people. To find there's several books out there that try to define it, and they define it from multiple different angles. There was a famous psychiatrist, psychoanalyst named Ethel Person that tried to analyze it and really come up with a definition maybe 30, 40 years ago. There's no agreement. We all can at least say it's a certain kind of attachment. It has certain neurobiochemical correlates. It includes playing with fusion and boundaries, and it's experienced differently by different people. Ultimately, in a healthy way, it's an expression of intimacy. And if you can't feel the intimacy, then there's a problem with the relationship and the love. But the falling in love part, again, for many people is not a choice. In fact, it comes upon people typically much like a lightning bolt, which is why we tell them, you don't want to get those lightning bolts going if you have a problem with repetitive patterns in your relationships. Let's talk to George Clark here. George is from New York. George, what's going on? Yeah, let's get George up here. There you go, George. Huh. It's interesting the way this My app is jumping around a little bit. Kelly Gallagher, can OCD affect how one feels when they're in love? They get obsessed with their loved one as they do other things. Yeah. OCD can affect, or you can get anxious or anxious preoccupied, which is an attachment style. It's just sort of an attachment style. George, what's up, man? George made it up to the podium, but I can't see where his microphone is on yet. Whoever that is on Twitch had a buddy struggling with love addiction. It's affecting all areas of his life, and that's what makes it a problem, right? If it's affecting functioning and it's having all this emotional material attached to it, then that's an issue. Let's see. George, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
All right. Sorry, it's my AirPods screwing me up.
Uh-huh.
What's the deal with AstraZeneca? I saw a news headline today in the Wall Street Journal that they can't pull the data together for approval in the U.S.
I don't know. I know they've been concerned about that vaccine from the beginning, that there was a number of... I don't know exactly what the data was that made them concerned, but they were concerned about side effects. And they were concerned about efficacy, too, relative to the side effects. So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'll look into it. You're in New York right now, right?
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying about people seem like they're out engaged now and happier?
Yes, for the most part. I'm noticing that people are more relaxed in terms of like walking outside without masks on. I'm not nearly getting as many side eyes and angry looks when you don't have it on in public.
Yep.
But we've always tried to keep living one way or another, even when everything was shut down. But I think the atmosphere with a lot of people getting vaccinated, the CDC guidance with outdoor masking, the announcement today that they're going to aim for July 1st, probably even earlier, to be open 100%.
Yep.
I think people are feeling more hopeful. And over the past month in particular, my personal training clientele has grown a lot.
Interesting.
And the gyms are packed.
Interesting.
So people are definitely chomping at the bit to get back to life here one way or another.
Yeah, and it feels to me like New Yorkers are sort of reclaiming their city in an interesting way. So thanks, George. I appreciate that. Let's see. This looks like it's Lori. Lori, I'll try to get you up here. New temp phone Ash. You can call in on Clubhouse, or you can ask me the question here on the Restream. Lori, what's going on?
Hi, Dr. Drew.
Hey, Lori.
Thank you. Huge fan of yours. I've been listening to you and watching you since Love Line.
Oh, wow.
Way back when.
There you go.
Unfortunately, I had a tragedy this year. I lost my 18-year-old son to a overdose of fentanyl in the pressed pills. He died in 2000.
I am so sorry. It makes me nuts. This makes me nuts.
I wanted to know. I haven't heard you speak on this yet, but we obviously can't take down how it's coming into the country, fentanyl and these pressed pills, and they look exactly like Oxy and Percocet and all of that.
Right.
It's perfectly replicated. So, do you have any ideas to how to get to the kids before they're buying it off Snapchat?
I think you're raising the awareness right now about Snapchat as a serious risk factor for purchasing illicit substances that could contain fentanyl. I've heard that story a bunch of times, that the kid gets it off Snapchat, dies on a fentanyl overdose. So just you bringing this up, I think, is an important starting point. So raising awareness about how dangerous social media is for young people, and that it's not just about being exposed to perpetrators or pornography. It is literally, it's the drug market of choice, and Snapchat appears to be the number one environment right now. And then the other thing is, if anything's going on with your kid, if things don't seem right, get him screened for substance use. It's too dangerous now. Any substance use can result in a fatality so easily, as you unfortunately found out. He might not have been strung out on opiates. He might have been just partying on Xanax and alcohol, and boom, that's it. Right?
Yeah, he had a little bit of sobriety. He was 18, so he checked himself out of rehab and relapsed, and it was on that relapse that he died.
I'm so sorry. It's such a serious illness. It is a fatal illness in a large percentage of cases. Was he ever on Suboxone?
No, he didn't do Suboxone. He did go to his primary doctor that wanted to give him a shot of naltrexone, I think it was.
Yep.
He didn't want it. He convinced his doctor that he didn't need it, and didn't have anything.
So to me, that was a good idea by that doctor, but he or she doesn't understand addiction. If you're going to allow the patient with addiction to make the determination on how you approach the care, you're going to end up with a bad outcome. Because what his brain was saying by saying I don't need that, his brain was saying I want to leave the door open to using because I don't want you to shut down my opiate receptors, and that should have been a absolute flag to the doctor that this is somebody who is struggling. So ugh.
Thank you. Yeah, now the purpose of his life is to tell the story of his short life.
And please, Lori, just
how easy it is for kids to get their hands on fentanyl and how easy it is to die just on the first time.
I mean, did you hear it was oh shoot, I'm blocking her name now. She's a radio Laura, Dr. Laura's son, and there's the exact same story. And it can happen to anyone. You could be an addiction doctor, and still it could happen to your kid. It is just exceedingly common, and we are dealing with it as though it's just hey, kids will be kids, which is categorically wrong, and B, there is no understanding out there that these are progressive illnesses that end in death. I mean, if you put any other illness into the description of how addictions go, and my goodness, you'd be airlifting people for care. And yet with addiction, like, oh, no, they'll be fine. No, we can leave them in the outpatient. No, they don't need that. Oh, my God. It's our ignorance when it comes to addiction is amazing. And I hope you will keep telling the story. I know lots of patients, lots of families who have lost someone, and they make meaning out of sharing the story and hopefully raising awareness with other parents. So please keep talking, okay?
I am. I'm speaking on a panel tomorrow.
Great. Oh, Lori, please let us know. But post it on social media. Tag me. I'd like to see where you turn up and where you go. I'd be happy to look around. Let me talk to John very quickly. Hi, John. What's going on?
Hi, Dr. Drew. Nice to finally talk to you.
You as well.
It's funny that Lori brought this up because I literally just left a woman who's been mostly homeless, living out of her car. And I've been trying to advocate for her to get her into an acute care situation because she's been in and out of hospitals a lot of her life, and she's had about 70 different surgeries, and she's fully addicted to fentanyl, OxyContin, and Percocet, which is Tylenol and OxyContin.
Yeah.
And she's got a whole laboratory of drugs going in her.
Yeah.
And and if any mention of it triggers a panic response in her, and she attacks everyone.
Yeah, you understand. You got to understand when somebody's addicted to opiates, the brain behaves as though any threat to the use is a threat to that person's survival. So they will fight as though you were trying to kill them. That's in the nature of the motivational distortion we call addiction.
So how do we kill OxyContin?
You can't kill OxyContin. You what you have to do is get people have a carrot and a stick to get people into treatment. And unfortunately, and by the way, we have doctors that just hand this stuff out like nothing to drug addicts. It's one thing to hand it out to somebody with chronic pain without addiction. It's another matter to give it to somebody who's strung out so badly they're homeless. And I don't know, somebody like this, you'd want to get them into long-term care of some type.
Well, we have it, but she refuses to go because I'm pretty sure.
Right, she doesn't want to stop.
We're going to try to control it.
Right, she doesn't want to stop. She doesn't want to stop.
In this process, I've been learning about opioids. Does anybody know that heroin is just morphine with microwave popcorn butter mixed into it?
Yeah, diacetyl morphine.
Yeah.
Or morphone, I think technically, but here's the deal. She if somebody like this, I would work hard to switch to a medication called Suboxone, which is still an opiate, and she could take a pretty high dose of it and be kind of at ease with her addiction, let's say. But there's a potential to at least taper that off. and people think a little better on that medicine as opposed to on these short-acting opiates. So that's for somebody really resistant with no motivation and a lot of serious concomitant issues. That's where I would try to get her. So see if you can get somebody to prescribe Suboxone for her and get rid of all the shorter-acting stuff, because you'd be surprised they become a little more workable when you get them off some of that short-acting stuff. You guys, I got to kind of wrap things up here. Thank you for hanging out on Clubhouse. I appreciate it. We'll occasionally do this, and a reminder that we stream most days also at drdrew.tv, drdrew.com. But it's always a privilege to talk to people and take calls from Clubhouse while we stream and get your guys great questions, which they are always amazing and good. And we appreciate it, but I'm going to step out of this room presently, and we're going to keep streaming at drdrew.tv. If you'd like to join us there, you can ring in with your questions on the Restream. We'll be watching the Restream chat presently. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you soon. Let's look at what you guys are talking about. I saw some interesting questions up there. Let me see if I can get you guys back in this conversation. What's that, Susan? Okay. Well, let me then bring it over here and see what I can do. Suboxone, like methadone, it is like methadone, unfortunately, but methadone is far worse in that methadone, it takes 6 months to get off methadone, and it has horrible withdrawal, and it's kind of it's a death sentence or a life sentence, however you want to think about it. And if you're using enough methadone to reduce your opioid use, you're essentially asleep on the couch most of the day. So I'm not a methadone fan. But again, if somebody, it's better than dying of fentanyl overdose. Let's see. What is an alternative for long-term pain relief? If you are a chronic pain patient and you've had trouble controlling your pain medicine use, really look at Suboxone as a possibility. That's sort of the ideal situation for somebody with chronic pain. Suboxone really works. For some reason, people with chronic pain resist it, but why would I be telling you to take it if it didn't work, right? If it doesn't work for you, you can try something else, of course. Let's see. Yeah, Anthony Brown, you're on the fence. I can't. So let's see. Any harm in delaying the Pfizer vaccine a couple of weeks? Morris, not really, not especially. Obviously, you want to do what the manufacturer is recommending if you can, but you can do that if you want.
I've done that before.
Let's see. Is quetiapine addicting? That is Seroquel? No, it is not. Though people with addiction can use a lot of Seroquel. They'll use substances generally to try to, change their affect states. So, let's see what else you guys are thinking about. Yes, Christy's saying I've seen a bunch of people die outside instead of getting help. Yep, I'm sure of that. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Let's see. Good. Chris B. To my surprise, my pain is still a challenge, but it's quite a bit better without pain medication. Yes, Chris, if you're willing to come off your opioids, with many people with pain medication or chronic pain are not, but chronic opiate use intensifies pain. It's called hyperalgesia. It causes chronic withdrawal, so you get headache and back pain. And if you have any tendency to addiction, it causes that momentum, that desperation that you feel as the pharmacology goes up and down. So yes, of course. And again, I wouldn't recommend these things if it didn't make people better. It makes them better. Is it normal to develop intimacy problems and social anxiety when you stop drinking? Yes, it is, the best Virginian. You're having feelings for the first time in a while, and feelings can be uncomfortable if you've been used to medicating them away for a long time. Okay. I'm looking at your guys' question. Figure out why they're taking drugs in the first place. Well, B-World, when people are taking drugs in the first place, typically it's what's called affect dysregulation, and usually dysregulation is caused by trauma, and that is something deep in the body and needs to be highly treated over a long period of time. But treating it before you treat the addiction sometimes makes things worse. So it's that we're going to have Dr. Gabor Mate in here soon. We couldn't get him until the fall, essentially. but he has a lot of good data on trauma. He also has been using hallucinogenics, I know, for treatment of depression. Yep. It was years of taking the stuff under a doctor's care, but was rough tapering off. Yes, Chris. Just because a doctor is prescribing it does not mean you're not strung out on it or it's not adversely affecting you. Doctors created the opiate epidemic both in 1890 and the most recent one. We categorically brought on the epidemic. Understand, the doctors that were doing the overprescribing believed that Purdue, the makers of OxyContin, were lifesavers. They were the perfect partners in what it was they were trying to do. They believed they had a white hat profession. They were going to solve the problem of pain for all humanity. They were sorely misguided. And I lived through all of that, and they killed lots of my patients. Lots and lots and lots of them. Okay. I had an uncle who seemingly had it all, but when the shit hit the fan, he went off the deep end. Stephen, what happened there? Let's see here. Okay. Wow, I can't imagine having just dealing. Yeah. Pocketbook Policy says, "Oh wow, I can't imagine having to just start dealing with my feelings well into my adulthood. Mastering feelings takes a long time." It does. And sometimes if you started using like in your mid-teens, you actually stop developing too. So it's not just about managing feeling states and having them for the first time. It's also developing fully. Development gets sidetracked. Somebody has been on Twitch has been fished or something. Unless that's all just one account. Thank you, Brady. Appreciate it. My LDL 2 years ago was 177. Is that normal? 177 is too high. LDL, oh no, I'm sorry. Your LDL, now it's 116, which is excellent. 177 was too high. And your HDL is 41. You'd like to see that come up a little bit. Triglycerides are 125. That's not too bad at all, in fact. For me, insulin was the problem, and when I eliminated carbohydrates, my HDL came up and my triglycerides went down. Yeah, Miss Dunn, he's very good. Is Vyvanse addicting? Well, the underlying molecule is an amphetamine, so if you have any addictive history, you got to be very careful with psychostimulants. Very, very careful. Okay, I'm going to wrap things up. I appreciate you guys stopping by today. Felt like an interesting conversation.
This is how we should have done it before.
Yes, I see that. Although it would have been weird to hold the phone.
No, I know, but we could put it here.
Yep.
You're too close.
Yep.
You live, you learn.
Yeah. So we had technical problems. No such thing as a show
They're not problems, they're situations.
We had technical situations. There's no show I'm aware of that doesn't have technical situations. Gently Moving says most traditional physicians don't advocate keto. That's true, and keto may not be for everybody. I think some people, the fats are more of an issue than the insulin metabolism. I think people with metabolic syndrome have a little bit of both, frankly. And so oftentimes it's about taking a statin and eliminating the carbohydrates. So, all right. Following in the 80, my partner was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Is it possible to be happy? Sure. Bipolar can be stabilized. No problem. In fact, it's one of the easier things to stabilize. The problem is people come off their medications because they miss the mania. People like that high of being manic. Okay. What is the possible harm first use of psychedelics? Hard to predict. I've seen some with people take a large dose, and I've seen other people obviously do okay with low-level exposure. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone who is over on the Clubhouse. We appreciate that as well. And we appreciate you guys being on the Restream and participating. Oh, my goodness.
You always burp at the end.
I know, what's that? I can tell I'm ready to go.
I used to sneeze.
Yeah, I don't sneeze in New York. I just burp. But thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention. Let's see. Somebody's giving... Somebody actually emailed me to tell me how to do the Clubhouse audio because they couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, I can't figure... Well, from the iPhone onto the Mac?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, it says
Why are you moving the mic?
switch your audio so you can take that part of it. Less bandwidth. Look forward to catching up. Let's grab that.
What does it say?
He has a whole. I'll forward it to you.
Okay. Yeah, because if we could run it through the Mac on the audio on the computer.
Then it works.
I don't know.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. And we will hopefully see you tomorrow. We'll swing around, hopefully around the same time. See you then. Anyone who's watched me over the years knows that I'm obsessed with Hydrolyte. In my opinion, the best oral rehydration product on the market. I literally use it every day. My family uses it. When I had COVID, I'm telling you, Hydrolyte contributed to my recovery, kept me hydrated. Now, with things finally reopening back around the country, the potential exposure to the common cold is always around. And like always, Hydrolyte has got your back. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity, my new favorite, starts with their fast-absorbing electrolytes and adds a host of great ingredients. Plus, each single serving easy pour drink mix contains 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, 300 milligrams of elderberry extract. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity comes in convenient, easy to pour sticks that rapidly dissolve in water, make a great tasting drink, has 75% less sugar than your typical sports drink. It uses all natural flavors, gluten-free, dairy-free, caffeine-free, non-GMO, and even vegan. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity is also now available in ready-to-drink bottles at the Walmart next to the pharmacy, or as always, you can find it by visiting hydrolyte.com/Dr. Drew. Again, that is HYDRALYTE.com/DRDREW. Be sure to use the code Dr. Drew 25 for a special discount.